Okay. Let's do some adjusting. I can't stand being all the way up there. And you guys back here. Okay, well, I find it really weird, interesting, different, that I'm standing up here this morning. Do you guys realize it was like last year, Thanksgiving, that I shared? I'm like... It's like, is God trying to say something to me or something? You know, it's like, I think I have some things to learn. Because some things you don't learn unless you dive in and push in. And I feel like that's one thing that God has really been, Thanksgiving is giving thanks. It's one thing that God has been just like, you know, it's time to get this together, girl. I feel like Thanksgiving is something that we talk about, but I don't know how much we've got that. I don't know how much we've got it. I just feel like, I don't know. You know, it's like, oh, let's have Thanksgiving. Okay, let's go have a turkey and watch a football game. Not. Okay, something is not connecting. You know, and we live our lives and we say yes to God. I want you to be my Savior. I want you to be in charge of my life. But then in the moment we say no because we're not willing to accept what He gives. We're not willing to be gracious. We're not willing to be thankful in the moment. So I picked that up from Ann Voskamp. It's like, wow, that's a really big one. You know, Thanksgiving is saying yes in everything to God. That's what salvation really is. It's a yes that starts when we open our hearts to Him, and a yes that continues all the way through our lives. So, and grows. So, yeah. So, you know, Phil was supposed to do this with me. Where is he? But his grandson is getting baptized today, so. I know, that's what I said. Well, no, I didn't say that. Anyway, so I am convinced more than ever that this is something that we really need to push in on. I feel like today, in today's world, this is what my mom said. I'm just going to read you my last first, okay? This is what my mom said. Because the question that was posed to me in talking about this, and you guys need to be thinking about this because we're going to talk about it. What would you want to tell your kids and your grandkids about Thanksgiving? Okay? How important of a place does it have in your life? And what would you tell them? What do you need to tell them about giving thanks and about what Thanksgiving is? And I just, you know, that really makes you stop and think a little bit, okay? So think. But this is what my mom said, because I asked her what Dad would say. She goes, I'm not sure what Dad would say. Well, Dad would have something to say. Okay. Not sure what Dad would say, but I'm sure part of it would be to be thankful. And I'll talk about him a little bit later. But I would say, this is what she said, I would say that thankfulness is one key to avoiding depression when you get old. Gratitude, forgiveness, and acceptance are very key parts of contentment. We are facing some very difficult times ahead when it will be hard to be thankful. We're there, right? It's already hard. We better be practicing it now. I thought, you know, good old Mom. Doesn't have a lot of flair, but when she says something, you better listen, you know? So we better be practicing it now. And that's what really hit me. Yes, it's true. It's so true. Because I can, you know, yeah, anyway. It's important. So I feel like we're living in times when a lot of times things don't go right. And we kind of, instead of being thankful, we get wrapped up in what's not going right. Okay? We get wrapped up in the politics, we get wrapped up in the theology, we get wrapped up in this, we get wrapped up in that, we get wrapped up in family issues. You know, we get wrapped up in all these things instead, and then we become disappointed with life. Right? Okay? We're just disappointed. And I'll never forget one time Art shared about how you become disappointed with life, and then from disappointment you just go to, it's a downhill slide to despair, depression, bitterness. And that's not where we want to go. Okay? So it doesn't help for me because, like, I have this thing in me that, you know, I can look at you and you can be doing something really stupid, but I'm like, oh, if they would just do this, it would be, you know, it's that thing of always, you know, knowing, I can feel it in me, the good that God wants to do. And then it's just so disappointing, you know, of myself, of others, you know. And so the disappointment, for me, can just be overwhelming. It really can. And that's where I get into depression. Okay, so, but anyway, yeah, so when things don't go right, we can just be really get wrapped up in that instead of, it's a choice. Okay? Thankfulness. And in loss. A lot of things are disappointing because we lose things. We lose what we treasure, and the older you get, the more you lose. Okay? You lose what you thought was going to be. You know, you just lose all the time. And so, you know, like I'm like, I can see why old people get grouchy. You know? Oh, Willie. That's because she wasn't talking to him. So, anyway, but these things, again, are a choice. And so we will talk about that choice that we have. Before we do, I want you each to think about, I just want you to list in your brain 3 things that disappoint you, upset you, whatever, that you're struggling with, that you would just like to fix. I want you to list those 3 things in your brain, and then we'll carry them through this time this morning. All right? I bet you it didn't take long. All right? Before we start, I want, like last year, I feel like what I shared was the posture of Thanksgiving, and I do want to go back over that a little bit if you're okay with that, because you probably don't remember it anyway. So, we talked about Eden, and remember that I love to think about Eden because it is the place that we're going back to. You know, that's our home. So I want to be ready for it. I want to be there in my heart. Even if my body isn't there, I want to be in Eden in my heart. And so it was a perfect place. It was a fulfilling life. It was fulfilling because they knew their God. And they were walking with Him every day. They were getting life from Him, and He was getting honor and adoration from them. You know, it was a good place. There was fulfillment all the way around. God was fulfilled. People were fulfilled. It was beautiful. All right? They had a relationship. But at some point, they stopped looking to Him, right? Okay, when another voice came in, they stopped being satisfied in Him. They started looking elsewhere for answers. Okay? They started wanting to have their satisfaction met somewhere else. All right? They started being ungrateful. They stopped honoring God. And they started finding their own way. Right? So that that caused the rift. Okay? And that, if you turn to Romans, will somebody read Romans 1:21, please? That has been my verse for a while. Got it? Go.
For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him, but their thinking became futile, and their foolish hearts were darkened.
Okay. And that's exactly what happened, right? Okay? They knew God. We know God. Okay? They knew God, but yet they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him. And when we make that choice, then what follows? Our minds are thinking. They became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. So where does it go? Right into the brain, right? The first thing that happens is that our minds are darkened, become futile in our thinking. And that's what happened to them. They started finding their own answers. Instead of clinging and being moored in God and in his word and in what he had, they started thinking. Their mind became twisted. Okay? And so they were separated. Their hearts became darkened. And if you go on down through that passage, you'll see all the things that happened. I mean, it's just like, ends up in 2023. Right there. Everything that you can imagine, all the sinful acts and degradation. Okay, so, but we do have that. I'm glad that we have the Bible. I'm glad that we have the example of Adam and Eve, because we can choose. We have the ability to choose where we are going to keep our mooring, where we are going to place our hope and our honor and our thanks. So that's what we want to do. Okay? If Adam and Eve had just, I got the picture of a sailboat. You know how a sailboat, it's like, it's tied to the mooring, right? Okay? The closer in the storm, the closer that it's tied to the mooring, the less wreckage you'll have, right? And less damage. And it's the same with us. Sometimes I feel like we give ourselves too much rope. And then we get all beat up. Life happens as a result of the choices that we have made, and we wonder why. Well, God, why did you do this to me? Hello. Where it's really our choice. Where are we going to be anchored? Where are we going to be moored? How close are we going to be moored to the pillar to keep us solid, to keep us from being futile in our minds? The more that we spend time in this and learn and grow and learn, the more we learn the mind of God, the more we learn the ways of God, the closer our mooring will be to him. Okay? It's not in what somebody else says. This is what God says about himself. What does he say about himself? Who is he? Who is he? Who is he? Have you discovered, I think I shared this last time too, how sovereign is he? He is sovereign. Okay? That's what he says about himself. Okay? And if my thinking becomes darkened when I don't allow him to be the authority in my life. And my mooring just gets further and further out there. So he is sovereign. Good and bad. He is sovereign. Right? He is my source. I don't have to give in to anxiety and fear because things are going to go awry. He is my source. He is the source of my peace. He provides the turkey. Okay? After we go get the money. In my case, I get it from the hospital. The only free perk we get in the holidays. Oh, gosh. Anyway, but He is my source. He's my security. All right? There's so much tension and anxiety in our lives because of where we just feel insecure. But there is security in the hands of the Father. It's insecure when we lose things, when we lose our partners, when we lose our reputation, when we lose, or we never did have a reputation, or it's a bad one, or whatever, It's hard. But when our security is in how He feels about us, and in how He takes care of us, it's like this. It's like being a little egg in the hand of Father. He cares and He holds us. We are secure. So it's like dwelling in Him in this way gives me so much security. All right, it is, and I can be held close to Him. I can be moored in Him. He is the center. He can be the center and the circumference. Those are two words that I got out of my Bible, out of the study notes. And I'm like, ooh, that's really good. Wish I'd have made that up. But He's the center and the circumference of my life. He holds it whole. He doesn't leave strings laying all over the place. There is a security there, and He's got it. He's got it all. And that, and that's what Adam and Eve had at the beginning. That's what they had. They had that honoring of God because they knew Him as sovereign. They knew Him as their source. They knew Him as their security. All of that was solid in their lives. So, to give that up is, but we do. Anyway. So now in everyday choices and practice, the Creator can be exalted over the creature. We can say yes to God in every situation. And that will keep Him, that is honoring God. That is the way we honor God. That is the way and to give thanks is a fruit of honoring God, and it also produces more honor. All right, so thankfulness is it's like all wrapped up in one big bundle of goodness, of God's way. You get fear and anxiety and pride and all of that bundled up over here, and you get honor and peace and thankfulness, security over here. So, anyway, thankfulness aligns. It honors God, and it aligns our hearts with His. So it is the position of our hearts. It's the place of honor in our lives. And it opens up our hearts and our minds to see Eden, and to see God, and to see life, to see good, to see possibilities. I'm reminded of Esau, who, here he is. There's two sons, Jacob and Esau. God chose Jacob's offering, but not Esau's, because Esau's heart was not in a place of honoring God. Esau had a choice. Okay? He could have changed his heart and chosen to honor God and repent. But instead he became bitter. And he ended up killing his brother. Okay? Was that what? Oh, that was Cain and Abel? Gosh, I'm getting all mixed up, aren't I? Okay. Same. Let's go with that. God. David is also... I like to think about David when he was a kid. He was the forsaken kid. He was the youngest kid. He was the one that, you do the chores. He was the Cinderella of their family, right? Yeah. You go out and take care of the sheep. We're going to have a party, and we're going to entertain, Samuel, and one of us is going to be named king, and you be out there taking care of the sheep. What a slap in the face. And this was his life. This was his life. But what did he do with his life? During that time, he chose to sing, to be close to God. He chose to develop his relationship with God. He chose to be near to God every single day, to listen to God, to thank Him. The Psalms are full of thanks. Okay? So he chose to develop thankfulness and honor and forgiveness in his life. He had to have forgiven. Good grief, that was a lot to forgive. To be the Duncan child, But he chose to forgive. He chose. And God saw that honor. God saw that development of his heart. That God saw the bend of his heart to be his and to listen to him. And that's the one that God would choose to be the king. Right? He's such a good example of this. What are we going to do with our life situations? So what if I get stuck being the Cinderella? Life doesn't always turn out like we think. But can we do like David and just give that to God? Forgive. Ask God to be the Lord of our lives. Ask God to moor us and just work on that relationship of being close to Him. That was the position of honor and thankfulness that David had. I just thought it was really cool. I love his example. So I just want to look at a couple of scriptures. Can you guys pick up some scriptures here? Somebody pick up Luke 17 to 19.
17 to 19?
Yeah. Luke 22:19. You got that one? Okay. Mark 6:41. And Psalm 50:23. Okay. So let's go with Luke 17 first. Who has that?
I got it. Jesus asked him, "Were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner?" And he said to him, "Rise and go, your faith has made you well."
Okay, he just read the passage of the leper. Okay, what did the leper do? One of them came back and gave thanks. Okay, and what did Jesus say after he had given thanks? What did Jesus say?
Faith has made you well.
Your faith has made you well. Okay, here's a little bit of word study from Ann Voskamp, not from me. Made you well. That word there is sozo, and it means completely whole. Okay? His body had been made whole already, but his faith, his honoring of God, his turning to God, made him completely whole. Isn't that neat? And isn't that not what we're after? I want to be healed, but I want to be completely whole. Okay? Okay, couple more. Mark 6:41.
Jesus took the 5 loaves and 2 fish, looked up toward heaven, and blessed them. Then breaking the loaves into pieces, he kept giving the bread to the disciples so they could distribute it to the people. He also divided the fish for everyone to share.
Okay, what was the first action in that story?
Took 5 loaves and 2 fish.
And what did he do? That's right. He gave thanks for them. He blessed them. He gave thanks. And after the thanks came the miracle. After the thanks came the miracle. That's what our hearts can do. Thanks will turn it into a miracle. What was the other one? Psalm 50:23.
Those who sacrifice thank offerings honor me, and to the blameless I will show my salvation.
I'm holding this mic and I'm not giving it to you. God.
Those who sacrifice thank offerings honor me, and to the blameless I will show my salvation.
Okay. Those who offer thanks honor me, and I will show them the salvation of God. What a sweet promise. Right? Those who give thanks honor me. What was another one? Luke 22. Here, Linda. 19.
And when he had taken some bread and given thanks, he broke it and gave it to them, saying, "This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me."
What was Jesus facing? Crucifixion. What did he do? Gave thanks. He didn't forget to live in the moment and recognize the Father's provision in the moment. The provision of his fellowship with his disciples, the provision of food, the provision of, and the knowledge of walking in the will of God. He was thankful that he was walking in the will of God, even though he knew what it was going to mean. Right? And you know what? The miracle happened when he died and rose again, right? The miracle for us. Thanksgiving precedes the miracle. So, those are all really, and there's tons more. We could go over a lot more. But there's just something more I just want to, please, let's just individually ask God to take us on a journey. Oh, I've got 2 mics going. Okay. I don't think on my feet really well. Okay. But let's ask God to take us on a journey to learn thanks, to learn honor. Can we do that? That's what I've been doing. And it's been, and it's like, okay, so life has not been fun sometimes, but you know what? Life is good. Life doesn't have to be fun to be good, right? All right? So I feel like that's what I covered last year, but I want us to talk a little bit about the practical a little bit more, because I feel like this is what God has kind of been pushing on me this year, is the practical. Like, well, okay, so that's the posture of our heart, to be grateful. How does that work out so that I say yes to whatever God gives me? I'll get it going, okay? All right? So, there's the very basic things like what you put in your brain, okay? Let's go to Romans 12, 1 and 2. Because here's the deal. We don't live in a positive world. I'm sorry to tell you that, but there's a lot going on that is not positive, all right? And so how do we be positive? How do we be thankful in a world that is not thankful? Like I watch it at work. Those little kids are not thankful for me. And they're not thankful for their parents. They're obnoxious. Okay? But how can I be thankful and develop thankfulness and spread that anyway? How can that be the posture and the practice of my heart? So, Dave, you want to read that?
Romans 12, 1 and 2.
Yeah.
The NIV says, "Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will."
Okay, so we're transformed from all this other by the renewing of our minds. All right. How does that happen? Faith. Yep, it does take a lot of faith. It's faith and living out the faith, right? It's taking the step of faith when you don't feel like it, right?
Humility.
Pardon?
But humility.
Oh, what about when somebody doesn't agree with you?
Maybe you're wrong.
Oh, wow. Now there's a different idea. Maybe wrong? Are you kidding me? Humility. Very interesting. Let me just throw the bucket at you. What about your politics? What about your theology? Maybe you're wrong. Maybe you're wrong. That's one thing I have learned. Seriously, this is one thing that I have, because I hate tension. Tension really bothers me. Okay? And so when people start talking politics and differing stuff, I get so uneasy. I'm just being honest. It bothers me. Okay? But this is what, yeah. So God says, this is what He told me. Don't be so sure of yourself. Be humble. Why do you have to press your point? For Pete's sake. Be thankful for that person. Be thankful for what they believe. Be thankful that God is working in them, and let Him work in you too. Why do we have to push each other? Why do we have to keep bringing up the same things over and over again? Just to make our points. Jesus is after humility. Jesus is after a thankful heart. Willie? Yes. I can't be thankful for you and striving with you at the same time. Right? I'm thankful for you.
Oh, thank you. I'm thankful for you.
Thank you.
It took me a second.
I noticed that. I noticed it took you a bit. It was a long pause. Yeah, we throw the word humility around. But really, okay? Thankfulness, humility is being thankful for someone else as much as for myself. Okay? Can we hear this? This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where we become changed by practicing, especially in the family of God, for Pete's sake. Why do we focus on our differences instead of on our common heart? I know that there's things you have to figure out, but you don't have to be like, oh man, I can't wait to talk to Steve. This is what I need. He needs to hear this. Don't worry, I've got that covered at home. Okay? All right. Is that enough of that? I could go on. give a little example? Sure. Oh, wait. Microphone alert.
I was coming out of the post office this week, and I heard this, it was a stressing voice, Angie's neighbor. Okay, you know who that is. Okay, so she vents, she comes outside, she's on the porch, and she's a nuisance to the neighbors. Let's face it, Yeah. She can be causing a lot of trouble. And so this other lady, she was coming towards the post office, and she said, I could tell she didn't know what to think. Mm-hmm. And I said, she lives there, and she didn't take her medicine this morning. Wasn't very kind, but I was just thinking of the neighbors, what they've been through, with that woman or whatever. But this lady, this is what she said. It makes you thankful that you're not. And I just thought that was such a nice,
beautiful,
way of saying it. She heard the stress of that lady calling out, in her anguish,
right.
And we want her to be set free, yes. But anyhow, here this lady came with that perspective. I just thought it was so good.
Yes. Which? Go ahead.
When you were talking about humility, I just thought that's an encouraging posture from the Father. Mm-hmm. He wants us postured in humility so that we can represent His person into a situation instead of proving our point into a situation. So.
Well, there you go. Art does it again. Okay, so we can prove His... represent His person into a situation instead of trying to prove our point. Well, that's what we say that we want to do. Now we just have to do it, right? Okay? Now the story that Louise shared brings me to another little thing that God keeps telling me. And that is, take a second look. Okay? Now, I can look at her, and I'm like, oh, how can we take care of this issue in our town? Okay? Because it is a nuisance, all right? But take a second look, just like that lady did. Okay? When I am frustrated about something, take a second look. What, God, is your perspective? I was taking somebody somewhere this week, and she was in the car, she wanted to do okay. And I go, oh, I love those trees. Look at how I just love it. Even though the rest of the trees are down, those trees still have that beautiful, like the whole spectrum of color yet. She's like, you interrupted me. I shouldn't say that. But, it was like... And it just made me, it was like one of those things like, take a second look. Don't look at what's always going on. Look at see what God sees. If you were living if you were like a hostage and in a bunker somewhere being hid, you would come out, when you came out, you'd be like, oh, I love those clouds. I'm saying, oh, I'm so tired of cloudy days. And they're saying, wow, look at the clouds. There's a sky. Take a second look at everything. Take a second look at that person. Take a second look at the situation. Take a second look. All right? Don't be so sure of yourself. Take a second look. Like I'd reprogram your mind. Okay, these are really stupidly simple things, but it's a way that we can love God and love people. All right? Any other suggestions? Kevin, hang on.
Okay, so... Okay, well, good. So, second look, right? Now, that story is about the lady that lives on the side street with the porch. Yeah. Right. Here's a second look. I was going into the gas station the other day, I don't know when it was, maybe 2 weeks ago, covered in paint like usual, because I want people to think I'm working. And she was there. And I got a little nervous. And she looked at me, she goes, "Hey, you're that guy." I go, "Yeah?" I'm thinking painting. She goes, "You're at that church." I said, "Yeah." She goes, "I love the music. It is so beautiful." I said, "Yeah, it is." She goes, "Hey, you're kind, aren't you?" I said, "I don't know." She goes, "No, look at your face. You're kind." I thought, never heard that before. She goes, "Give me a hug." So I gave her a hug. She let go of me. Someone walked in and goes, "Hey, this is that guy from that church with the music." And he didn't look at me. And she goes, "Don't worry, that's my daughter's boyfriend, and he's not with it or something. But it's okay." And we walked outside, and she just kept saying how much that she loved the music, and she was so happy to get to be here, but to interact with somebody outside of the church. And it was a second look for me, because my first reaction is from within myself and my understanding and how I've already judged everything, because I'm a great judge, right? And so it was a second look. So I just thought I would share that.
That's really cool. Yeah. Okay, so those are some just, other things like, what do we fill our minds with? Because if we're going to retrain our minds, we need to fill our minds with what will honor God and draw us closer to Him and give thanks to Him. Okay? So that's another one. Any others that you guys want to shout out? Be intentional. Yeah. That's just the point, isn't it? We have to practice. We have to practice. And sometimes it's like as simple as, I remember one time in Bible study, we decided we were all going to set our timers for every 10 minutes. And at that 10, when it rang, we were supposed to jot down what we were thinking about. Okay? It's a way to be accountable to, Okay, so anyway. So let's just open up a little bit. Yeah. Oh, I didn't write. Okay. So I told you what my mom would say. I mean, this whole thing of gratitude, I really want to learn. I'm taking it from my mom. I'm taking it from anybody that will give it to me, right? This is what I want to give my kids about thankfulness and my grandkids. Devote yourselves to knowing your God. If you do, you will see His fingerprints everywhere. Your heart will be gladdened by His touches in the midst of your hard stuff and the world's hard stuff. This gives living hope for which we are thankful. Study out the ways of God and the character of God in His Word so that you can recognize His heart everywhere. This will make you thankful. Seeing His heart overcomes the sting of the world and will make your heart sing thanksgiving. I mean, I had time to think that out, but it did come pretty quick. But anyway, yeah. Understand it, ask God to take you on that journey, and practice it. Practice it. Anything that you would give your grandchildren? Any wise counsel?
You mentioned a legacy. I think of what was passed down to me from my dad. He was a very thankful man, and I just remember after every meal he would thank my mom. When you are thankful in the small things, you'll also be thankful in the big things. And so it's actually an attitude, and I hope I've passed down somewhat, at least to my children and grandchildren. Just the simple things that typically get overlooked. And when you practice thankfulness in those things, it touches people, And it touches you. It causes you to have an attitude of thankfulness.
I'm trying to teach my grandchildren the joy of reading and books and singing. And so I sit at the piano with them and we sing. So I want to teach my grandchildren to be thankful through singing. That's something I try to do when I'm driving or whatever. Just sing. If I'm having bad thoughts, just sing, and it really helps. Clear your head.
I've had a really hard season, and sometimes I'm not thankful for a lot of things. I wake up every morning, especially in the office when I'm at home. I take the kids. I'm not thankful that I have a car to take the kids. I'm not thankful that I get to take the kids to school, because to be perfectly honest, I would really like if they would ride the bus. But I make a list. And I used to do it to see the list. I have work list, I have family, house, kids. And every day that I don't get it checked off, I put them back on the list, and then I go through and do it again every day. And so what I don't see is the lists that are done, or the things that are done, that they did get done. I always see the failures. And it's been a really hard season for me to have these goals of different things, of not being thankful for my body and not being proud of my body and learning how to redo all of that. And proudly so this weekend, you got to stop. You just have to be thankful, because I get so down on all the things that I don't do. And so just hearing to be thankful is such a good reminder, just going through the goodness, what am I doing? So silly, because I know that. We know all these things, but just, it was just so good to be reminded, and, of course, having proudly remind me to be thankful. But it's just been a hard season I know that, but I don't give myself that.
Yeah, you're not alone, honey. Steve does that to me all the time.
Definitely hearing the right people.
I have been reading a book called Reading the Bible with Rabbi Jesus, and talking about the Jewish culture. And one of the things they discussed was that point of being thankful all day long. And so they had a little phrase that they would say when they would think of something happened or whatever, that they were going to be thankful for. And they would say, "Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe. Thank you for." And so I've tried to do that, and it really does make you more aware to actually make that phrase, and then what is it for? Just like I tripped and almost fell. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, for not letting me fall. Because that's not fun.
And what does that do? That not only thanks him, it honors him. The Jews are so good at honoring God. Their practices honor God and give him thanks. They really do. Yeah. Another thing of practice, that's one thing that Ann of Oskamp does. Her story is hard. She had a hard struggle with life. From the time that she watched her little sister die, being crushed by a truck, and what that did to their family, and what it did to her, and all the way up through life until she just had to deal with it and just had to hear God. And one of the outcomes of that is her book, 1,000 Gifts. You need to read it. Everybody does. It's not a girly book. It's a real book. But what she does, she lists, she just goes on a journey to list, to take the second look, find God's fingerprint everywhere. You know, my dad was so good at that. What do you see in that? You know, we used to be like, okay, God, Dad, I bet you can't figure something out that God's saying through this. You know, what about this nail here? That nail can remind me of the love of my God that went to the tree, went to the cross. I mean, he found something of blessing in anything. But see, that's what she did. And she just started making a list, 1,000 of them, and going. Every day, just something that reflected. You know, this is just really odd stuff sometimes, but it's like, read her book, man. It's crazy awesome. Very helpful. Very helpful. One thing that she says, too, is she gives, and this is what, okay. This is the word for the breaking of the bread. All right? We're going to be sharing communion, and we're going to do it with thanksgiving. All right? But this is the word, Eucharisteo is the word for the breaking of the bread. And what's interesting, and this is what Anne Voskamp brings out in it, is this is charis, for which Carissa is named. All right? It's the Greek word for grace. Giving thanks brings God's grace. Giving thanks brings God's grace. This is joy. The char is joy. And so, my thing is in your way, right? Well, just take my word for it, okay? Eucharisteo, the breaking of the bread. We bring our brokenness to God. We bring our brokenness to God. We receive His brokenness into our body. We receive His gift of grace into our bodies. And it gives grace for the everyday things that we struggle with. That brings joy. No matter what the things are that we struggle with, it brings joy. Eucharisteo. Okay? The breaking. It's okay to be broken. It's a wonderful thing to be broken. If we bring our brokenness to the Father's feet and let Him give us His grace to walk it through. And it will give joy in the journey. Because the joy will be here. It won't be because everything's going okay. It doesn't matter how things are anymore. It doesn't matter how much you bug me anymore. Because the joy is in the journey. It's here. It's here. The grace is here. Okay? So with that in mind, communion?
Yeah, that's good. Let's do that. Let's just come on up, take the elements, go back to your seats, and just take a couple minutes with somebody else next to you, and even just name a few things that you're thankful for. Lift that up to God. Obviously, thank Him for His body, His blood, His sacrifice, His life. And then after we do that, I'll come back up and pray for the meal downstairs. And you have something, Art?
I don't know. I remember, like, this is something maybe we could do, but Linda read out of Lamentations chapter 3, verse 22 and 23 last Sunday. It really made an impact about the declaration of God's mercy. There was thankfulness in that declaration. And I'm wondering, why don't we just sing it while we come up to get the elements over and over and over again?
if you can lead us in that, and let's come on up and get the elements.
Let's pray first for the elements, okay? Thank you, oh God, so much that you did the Eucharisteo, that you allowed your body to be broken for us, so that grace could be renewed to us every morning. And we want to celebrate that right now. We want to just thank you. And from the bottom of our hearts, Lord, we ask you to take us on a journey of thankfulness, a journey of recognizing your faithfulness and your renewing every morning. Your faithfulness, Lord, never ceases. It never comes to an end. And so, Lord, we want it to be on a journey, Lord, that will take us there and that will live in Eucharisteo. So, Lord, just touch us now as we celebrate your bread and juice, Lord.